What's going on, guys? So today is going to be a really interesting day because we are going to be testing out this Icy Breeze, and we're going to be doing a lot of different tests on this portable air conditioner from Icy Breeze, because there's a lot of folks who think this is just like a glorified swamp cooler, and it's not, because they've done things in a very unique way. We're going to talk about it real quick, reintroduce what we're talking about, and then we're going to jump to a test, well, I think in the most practical application possible. Hang tight, I'll be right back. Okay, so Icy Breeze looks like a cooler because, you know, it's molded very, very similar to most coolers, but it's not a simple cooler because they actually have a heat exchanger on it, right? What is that? You can see the coils in there, very similar to an air conditioning system you might have in your home. But the way this one works is instead of using coolant, this uses ice water. So it basically pumps the water in, goes through the coil, draws the air through it, and then blows it out on you. So the air that comes out of here should be relatively dry. And one of the tests that we'll do is going to be to determine how much humidity is actually mixed into this air. And humidity, of course, is the water content in the air itself. So with the swamp cooler, all you essentially are doing is blowing air through cold water or air over ice. And that's very humid air. Let me show you what we're talking about. So this right here is a swamp cooler. This is actually the definition of a swamp cooler. It is a very, very interesting solution for folks who typically live in less humid, drier environments, and they want air and they want to also possibly add some humidity. But these also work really well in areas where you want just cool air, but you're not too worried about the humidity. Maybe you're, you know, sitting outside, you know it's humid already, and you just want cold air blowing across you. What you basically do here is you fill this bottom reservoir full of water, and you can even dump some ice into it if you want from right here. And we've done that before. So you get this nice and cool. There's a pump that pumps the water up to the top, and it soaks all of this, and there's a big fan that pulls the air through it. So you have cold water coming down here, drawing air through it, and then blowing it on you. And again, it's very wet air because all it's essentially doing is pulling air through cold water and blowing it on you. That is not how the Icy Breeze works. So again, because we're using a heat exchanger here, the cold water is inside of these tubes the entire time, and it's never actually exposing the air directly to the water. Now that said, you're going to create condensation, and I imagine the condensation will just gravity drip off of this back into the cooler. That's my theory, because if you don't have any way of dealing with the condensation, then you could be sucking that condensation in and also blowing it out through here as wet air. So this is going to be an interesting test to kind of find out how much condensation this actually produces and how humid the air actually gets. How much of that condensation gets caught in the fan and blown out through the vent as humid air. So we have two 16-pound bags of ice. I already have one inside of here. Okay, so upon further researching of this, the folks over at Icy Breeze say that there's more foam used in the sidewall of their cooler than other leading brands of coolers. Now, I don't know how true that is, because it sure doesn't look as if it's thicker than some of those, you know, Yeti style coolers. That said, though, it definitely feels lighter. It feels much, much lighter. It feels less heavy duty than those other coolers. You can even see some of the components. They just don't feel as beefy. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna test this thing out, again, the way I feel most people would test this out. And real quick, this is not a sponsored video. They did not provide this to me. I paid nearly like 500 bucks for this, along with the 10 amp hour 12 volt battery charger. I think it came with an extra cable they claim for free. But that said, it's not inexpensive. But when you compare it to really anything else that's similar to it, it's actually a pretty good value, to be honest. Again, I still feel as if the construction could be a little bit more heavy duty for what its application is. You know, understanding though that, again, if you make this thing more bulky, it's going to be a lot heavier and more inconvenient to carry around. But we're going to go ahead and load up as much ice as we can to fill this thing up pretty much to the top with ice. That is one 16-pound bag and pretty much two 16-pound bags of ice. Now with this much ice in it, it actually has a hard time closing, so I'm going to have to take some of the ice out. It's kind of a shame to throw ice away, considering how hot it is outside. So I'm going to say you could probably fit maybe about 30 pounds worth of ice in total. Now, all right, so it closes. That's a good thing. We'll do a test with water in it as well, because I think a lot of people want to use this as an actual cooler. So maybe we'll throw a couple bottles of water in here also. Okay, so I removed two 20-ounce cups. I got the ice in here. It's got to be about an inch below the lid in order for the lid to close. And of course, I don't want these hoses getting caught up on the ice over here. So you can definitely see where it protrudes into the ice box a little bit once you have it closed. But I think we have it in a good position now. So we're going to go ahead and add water to it. Okay, I think we've probably added about a gallon of water to it, and we should be in good enough shape because it is underneath where the pump hoses are. All right, we're gonna drop the lid, insert the 10 amp hour 12 volt battery. Got our features on over here. I'm gonna go ahead and power it on and put it on extra cool, extreme cool. Okay, so I've had the ice in there now for about a minute and a half, and we're gonna see just how much the air's cooled down by using my little temperature meter here. The air is definitely not that hot. All right, there we go. 71 degrees, 70, 69, 8, 7, 5, 3, 2, 1. Wow, it's getting pretty cool. All right. 57. 55 degrees, 54. Wow. 49, 48, 47, 46. That's pretty awesome. I mean, you gotta admit, this is pretty awesome. And you can see the laser, it's not at the very end, it's kind of on the top of the tube. And it is getting colder and colder and colder. I mean, most AC units in your home aren't gonna blow out 38 degree air. And I'm not gonna lie, the air volume is actually pretty dang good. I mean, there's a good amount of air volume coming out of here. It feels about as strong as if you had like your car AC vent on the highest level and you had them all funneled through one vent. The fan that they're using in here has to be pretty dang powerful because it's blowing a good amount of air. I can feel the air about 3 feet away outside. 2 feet, yeah, closer to 2 feet away. Of course, it gets a little bit warmer as you get further away. Okay, so as a comparison, right now we're inside of the cabin, 61% humidity, which, believe it or not, for South Texas in this humid environment, even with the AC running, that's pretty normal. And you can see it jumping up a little bit because I'm moving closer to the exit. Okay, so I have my ThermoPro temperature humidity gauge here. The temperature outside is going to increase significantly. This was when I had it inside. The humidity has already jumped up. It was 60% humidity inside of the house. It's jumped up to 77% right now, 79%. It's very humid outside. It's always humid outside out here in the summer. But yeah, we're gonna hold it in front of the IcyBreeze and see what type of air we're getting. Now, maybe 4 or 5 minutes has gone by. I wanna see what the air looks like coming out now. So it looks like we're holding at about 51 degrees. If I get the lip here, maybe a little higher because this is black and of course the sun's hitting it, so it's not going to get as cold as it might normally, but 67 degrees on the outside of this plastic lip. Okay, so outside we've jumped up to 81% humidity. The temperature again is going to continue to rise because it's pretty dang hot out here. It's probably at least 95 degrees, so that's going to steadily go up. But I'm going to hold this in front of the IcyBreeze now, and I'm going to see what the air coming out of the IcyBreeze does from a humidity and a temperature perspective. Okay, so the sensor's right here on the back. Let's see what the air looks like coming out of this thing. Takes a second for it to adjust. Whoa, check that out. 60%. The temperature, I'm assuming, is going to drop pretty rapidly as well. 59%. %. I'm gonna hold it right up against it just because it's gonna be leaching in some of the air from around it as well. It's holding right about 60% humidity, which is pretty dang comfortable. That's not bad. The temperature's dropping down, as you can see as well. Temperature takes a lot longer to drop down than the humidity does. That is really, really exciting to see, and much better than I thought. I thought that we'd probably be hovering around 75% humidity, but it's doing a good job, obviously, of draining off the condensation off of the coils and just giving you the cold air. You can see the temperature is 67 degrees, humidity 61%. I bet the temperature is quite a bit lower than that too. You can see it dropping down. That's honestly pretty dang incredible. You can see the humidity is going up a little bit. Temperature is still dropping, 65 degrees. 65 degrees, probably what you see coming out of the vent is going to be very typical of what you might see coming out of the vent in your home. And one thing to point out, I have it on extreme right now. If you take it off of extreme, you can actually tell a pretty noticeable difference in the temperature of air coming out of it. It gets a little bit warmer, not warm, but it's not as cold as when it's on extreme. And I believe what happens when you hit extreme is the pump pumps quicker. It pumps the water through here quicker, so it has less of a chance for the water to warm up before returning to the cooler. But because of that, the air flowing past the coils is making contact with colder coils versus coils that might be warming up slightly because of the slower flow of water through them. But gotta tell you, man, super, super cool. Just for context on how hot it is right now, I'm gonna test the outside of the actual cooler, which is right in the sunlight. 147.3 degrees. 146. That is incredibly hot. So that's what the sun's doing it to it right now. That's the outside. Now I'm gonna open it up and show you what the ice looks like inside. So you can see how cold that is. You can see that it's pretty much, the coils look like they're frozen. Not frozen completely, but there's definitely frost on them. You can see that the ice is melting rapidly. But again, it's probably because the water I put in there was pretty dang warm in the first place. The ice itself is 29 degrees, but the water, that's 45, 50 degrees, 39. Let's just say 40 to 50 degrees. And then the coil's gonna vary depending on where it is. 45 degrees, 55 degrees, 63 degrees. But that's what's happening. So the water in here, this cold water is being sucked in one, pumped through the coil, and then the air is being pulled across that coil, and then the water that essentially has gone through the coil comes back in and recools inside of the ice. But I'm going to tell you, it's pretty dang effective. It's actually more effective than I thought it would be. That's probably the best assessment I can give you on it. The return air, or the area that the air actually gets pulled in so it can actually be blown out right here, is right here and on the other side as well. 57% humidity. This is pretty awesome. So this is going to wrap up test one, and that's essentially using it the way it's intended to be used, basically as a means of getting really nice, cool, dry air on you. Totally not a swamp cooler. This thing is so far removed from a swamp cooler, other than the fact that it blows cool air on you. But the fact that it uses a heat exchanger and blows dry, cool air on you is game-changing. You'd never want to use like a swamp cooler in your home. It's going to fill your home with mold. It's going to fill your home with water and condensation in the air. That's the reason why. You want dry air. That's comfortable air. Air coming out of here is dry air, especially down here where the humidity gets really, really high. But I'm super impressed with it so far. We're going to do other tests, including putting it in the RV and seeing if we can cool down the mid-bunk with this alone. We're going to let the temperature get nice and toasty in there, probably around 100 plus degrees. Then we're going to put this inside of there, and we're going to see if it can cool down one of the rooms inside of the RV. Anyways, guys, I got to tell you, it's passed my first test. Very impressed with its performance. Very impressed with the the lack of humidity coming out of it, that is super awesome. Their design works really well. This isn't going to be a completely sealed cooler because you have to have that area for air to be drawn into it. So that's a big difference between it and a standard cooler, but this thing is still pretty dang amazing. And again, I want to reiterate, not a sponsored video. My only real motivation to seeing this thing perform well is the fact that I'll be able to use it because it blows cool air when it's incredibly hot outside. So I am looking forward to using this thing and hopefully it providing the cool air relief that we're looking for, because it's been working pretty dang well. On its extreme mode, it definitely works through your ice a little quicker, but overall, this thing is performing really, really well. And again, you can run this thing off of one battery for like 6 hours. So that's also going to be really helpful, especially, like I said, in the mid bunk of the RV, where you don't get quite as much air conditioning into that space. And if this can offset that need, that would be really, really phenomenal. So super cool product. Pretty dang thrilled with how it's been performing so far. I'll put a link in the description if this is something you may be interested in. Anyways, guys, I sure hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.